Welcome, everybody, to the Unlocked Podcast. We are three business owners and friends from across North America.
Ooh.
And, I
Where'd you
figured
sneak
you would
that
be
little
the
line
one.
in there? That's not the intro.
Had to mix it up a little bit. We're
Do you
getting a
want to
bit
try that
monotonous.
again?
No. I was just, trying to spice it up compared to your intros. But you were just on a fun little golf trip, weren't you? You completely interrupted me. Now you just threw us off.
No, you just messed up his entire intro.
Well, three business owners and friends is a new touch that I didn't sign off on. I don't want people to think that, actually. Yeah, I guess if we want to get into that, I was playing a little bit of golf, Tony.
I suppose we should introduce each other. God, we were just all over the place here today.
Not we.
Anyways, let's back that up. We are three business owners
Try
and
again.
friends
From the top.
Yes. From around North America. And we get together every week or so and discuss what we do well and mostly what we fail at and try to learn from one another. And today we have a fun topic. We're going to be talking about what to do next. We've been at a couple conferences the last handful of weeks, and was talking to someone at one of the conferences, and he was just talking about how much he was learning, and like, oh, there's so much good stuff at this conference. I got to figure out what to do next. And I figured this would be a good topic just on kind of prioritization. A lot of times you go to a conference and you get a notebook full of ideas, and you have to do something with that to make it valuable, right? It's really easy to learn.
How did you help him with that process, Tony? Like, seriously, you helped him like think through and give the pros and cons of both sides and make a decision?
We were just getting off the bus as he said that, and the conversation did not continue. But I made a mental note and I said that would be a wonderful podcast idea, and I told him he should listen to our podcast. So anyways, wanted to talk a little about prioritization and how to prioritize. Can you go to a conference and you have a notebook full of ideas? And what to do with those to make it impactful, right? It's not just learning at a conference. It's what do you take away from that conference, and what do you do about it? And I think it stems beyond conferences, right? In general, it's just as a small business, you want to grow. You want to grow, hopefully, if you're listening to this. And how do you prioritize that growth? And you have a bunch of different ideas, and how do you prioritize them? So I am Tony Hokinson from Minneapolis, Minnesota, with Assured Security.
Nailed that one. That was good. You landed it really. It was little bumpy there, but you got it.
And there is a very smug gentleman sitting to my, I don't know, but wearing a nice tan sweater, just off of, I'm sure, a couple of nice golf rounds. You want to introduce yourself there?
Lars, did you have any birdies?
That was an experience. That last 3 minutes of Tony introduction was an experience that is a challenge for us.
Well, it was critically on script. He followed exactly.
But there was a zero script, which might have been the problem.
Really?
No, actually, no script, none.
If anyone's surprised by that, raise your hand. Oh, mama. Lars Johnson, Calgary, Alberta. I am battling the internet blues here today. I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I'm in Minnesota with the crap internet happening. So I'm gonna be fighting through this, but that's the kind of champion I am. I look adversity in the eye and I battle through it.
Chad and I do that every time we record a podcast. So
look adversity in the face and buffer right through it.
Yeah.
That was an internet joke.
It was good.
Yeah. So you're from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Was that what your introduction was landing there? Because all you did was complain about your internet.
I was ignoring you.
Oh, okay.
No, I was just ignoring you. I thought you were going to introduce yourself, and I've heard that more than enough.
Oh, okay.
Chad, we've talked. Tony, you just said we've spent the last couple of weeks together, and I'm wondering, Chad, is it AI? Like you sit on the stage virtually every conference, of which, if anyone's listening, please stop doing that. I have heard enough of this guy at these conferences. I have to spend every week with him, let alone then I fly across the world and listen to him talk more. But it's you've had a couple and a couple pretty impactful ones. So I assume that has to be AI.
What's that?
The content that you're delivering.
Oh, no.
Like that's got to be AI, right?
Are you talking about the panel that we had that had no preparation and I just had to give my opinion?
No, not that one.
Oh,
the previous three, I think. Anyway, yeah, it was just a thought I was having that you
were saying it was good enough that AI could have done it.
I was saying that it was way out of your league. Is what I'm trying to get to here.
Well, I appreciate that compliment. That was
glad you found a compliment in there somewhere.
A compliment saying that it was better than what you would expect out of me. Now it's fun to get an opportunity to share at some of these conferences. So did a class at an Osabloy event, sharing kind of our growth history on how we've implemented some growth practices. That was fun to just kind of, I guess, peel the curtain back a little bit. I'm a pretty transparent guy when it comes to those types of conversations, so get to show exactly what we've been doing and what the results of it. And then
and that one honestly was probably the most engaged I've ever seen an audience at one of those conferences. I don't know about you, Tony, but I remember us looking around because Chad, you really got into the details. We're showing numbers, showing data, showing factual information that was relevant to the audience. And there was a lot of people that were, and I remember seeing, people taking notes the whole time and wanting to talk after and get more detail. And that was an interesting one for sure.
It wasn't quite RMR Santa Claus, but it was close. Close.
He's no Alan Ponte, I'll say that. But
yeah, that's fair. I always enjoy those types of venues because you do get one. It's a little more relaxed, a little more comfortable, but I feel like I go to a lot of those conferences and you get somebody that's standing up there sharing information that they have literally made up, and it's all philosophical and it's not actual experience based. And so I try to always, if anybody has ever sat in any of those that I've done, I typically will start by saying, I'm not an expert on this, but I am going to tell you real experiences that I've gone through. And this is not stuff that I just made up last week. Because even if it's gross and it doesn't work well, I want to let you know that, or let you know my experiences around how it actually works, so that we can all learn from it versus just standing up there and kind of tooting our own horn, which I think we get way too much of in conferences.
Yeah, and I think that's what I try and do every week on this podcast as well. I'm
toot your own horn, or get raw.
There's no L in raw, just so you know.
Oh gosh, it's very similar to a drawl.
It's I just find a lot of business books, a lot of podcasts, a lot of these environments we go to, it's a high level, and that this is the ideal, and you just have to build a culture around, that's the biggest load of crap everywhere. Yeah, that's true. But that is so hard to do, to build a culture of blank. That's like, oh yeah, well, look at Chad's culture. He has a culture of this. Yeah, it's taken 13 years.
Yeah.
Right? So, but actually getting into the weeds and talking a bit of detail, some actual practical advice. And I think this is, ties into why Tony wanted to talk about this is, we make a lot of notes of these conferences, and it's like, okay, well, I just took a fire hose here.
Yes.
And I've got all of this info. Like, oh man, now what? What do I do with this? How do you work through that? And I assume that's kind of what the angle you were taking, Tone.
Yes. So this is something that I'm, to no surprise, horrible with. I love to learn information. I tend to take action on that information, but I don't always tend to take action on it in the most logical manner. It's kind of a, which is, somewhat contradictory to my personality assessment. But I tend to have ideas or things that I really like, and then I say, hey, we need to solve this, and then I want to solve it right now. And then it ends up with a lot of whiplash, a lot of disorganization, and can really annoy others around you, because it's like I'm always trying to fix the latest and greatest thing or the new idea that I heard. And I think there's kind of two extremes, right? You go to a conference or you go to an educational seminar or something, you read a book, right? And you have all these takeaways. And one extreme is you do nothing with it, right? You just read it and you don't write anything down and you just go read the next book. The exact opposite is you read it and you have a list of 20 takeaways and you go sit down with your leadership team and say, okay, let's get all this done right now. I want you doing this. I want you doing that. I want you doing that. And a lot of times I think as leaders, we gravitate towards what is easy, what is fun. And we don't always think about what is going to make the biggest impact, and what is the most logical to do to advance towards your goals. So again, this is something I definitely struggle with. So I'm interested to learn more from you guys. Hopefully you're a little better than me at it. But I think it's probably something we've all struggled with at some point. So to kind of just get started, when it comes to taking what you've learned and applying it in a structured manner to improve your organization, what have you guys learned? What do you guys typically do when you go to stuff like that? Or again, it doesn't have to just be conferences. I think that's the one application. But how do you prioritize what to do next? How do you have all these different things to improve on,
right?
How do you prioritize what makes the most impact?
Yeah. So, Chad, I'm gonna give us something tangible. We were just at in Austin at the Brevo Eagle Eye Summit. What was an actual takeaway for you, and that you've already started to or are in process of implementing with your company, and how'd you come to that? Give us that actual practicality, because I believe we talked about one of your takeaways.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which one it was. Honestly, because I feel like I've already handed it off to somebody, but I don't remember exactly what it was.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the answer too. Because I think we talked about that. That's the who.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't recall exactly, so I need to think on that one for a minute. And probably,
do you want me to hop in and then?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Can think about it for a minute. Okay, So one of my big realizations, I think, was we're talking about low voltage and really wanting to dive into the cameras and access control. Okay, that's what I'm dubbing as low voltage. So because we're a locksmith company, we're a locksmith mentality, we would always lead with access control. And then, oh, by the way, do you want cameras? But we really kind of focused our messaging and our branding on the access control. And then sitting through that summit, I realized that, access control is so boring. Like, there's nothing sexy about it. It's like, what's Brevo's big, value prop? Oh, it's cloud-based. Oh, well, we've had the longest cloud-based. Like, wow, it's just so boring. But then I realized, looking at all the cameras, the bells and whistles, the analytic, the future benefits of having a well-managed and a good VMS, that's a video management system, something, it's just, there's so much more sex appeal. It's easier to sell and then bring in the access control. So for me, it was just a change in mindset of what to lead with for our platform, to still, get the sales, but lead with the sexy stuff and then add on kind of the convenient, kind of boring stuff at the end. So that was, for me, that was just a change of mindset. So I'd made that note, and, on the airplane, and that's where I tend to do all my best thinking, because they were cut off from the world. But sit there and, I just read through all my notes, and I was like, which one is going to be the easiest, that's going to make the biggest impact? And that was simply just, okay, what do I need to do to implement this? Well, I got to make sure my sales team, as soon as I got back, talked to my 4 or 5 salespeople and said, hey, what do you guys know about cameras? How comfortable, 1 to 10, are you in selling cameras, capabilities? And just sat down and, got some feedback that we don't know anything about cameras. Like, okay. So, I found our sales manager, the person that's in charge of product knowledge, product development, product marketing, that kind of stuff, and said, okay, these are the reps. Have a conversation with them, get it set up so we can get some product knowledge on the products to make sure that our sales team is comfortable with selling what they sell, and then follow up with them. But So for me, is I organized it in a quiet spot where I could think of what's going to have the biggest impact, and then immediately found my who, because I know if I run with this, it's going to get about as far as the end of my nose, and then, which is quite far actually, but it's, but that was kind of my process.
I like that.
And just changed my mindset.
I like the couple of things there. You mentioned the quiet place. Ironically, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they said that exact same thing, like how so much of that is going away nowadays. You have podcasts, you have, the world at your fingertips with your phone, right? You can go on Instagram, you can go on TikTok, whatever your dopamine hit of the day is. And it kind of, it's very rare that you get a quiet place. And the airplane is one of the few, and there's like a new trend, I guess, taking like a, disconnecting when you're on an airplane. Just literally just, yes. I knew there was a term. And just like going on an airplane and doing nothing. But they talked about that in how it really, that used to be the norm. You'd have so much time to daydream and create stuff. And you don't really get into a good creative state unless you are disconnected. So I really like that tip of, when you're on the airplane, don't watch a video on your way home. Don't listen to a podcast. Look through your notes and weigh the pros and cons of impact versus ease of use, right? You might have something that's super impactful but going to take forever. On the flip side, you might have something that's super easy but has no impact. And you could almost go in, I don't think you did this probably, but you could literally go in and create a score sheet of, what does that look like?
Yeah, and there's lots of tools to do exactly that. As we're sitting here, all three of us have headphones in, and these are noise canceling headphoons. This is something I've realized. I bought a new pair of AirPods, and I put them in, and they noise cancel automatically.
Yeah.
And even if I'm not listening to music, I really enjoy having them in because everything's just so silent, and your level of thinking and
the
processing,
airplane noise almost does that to you, right? It's like a
I will say, okay, so I found the thing that I'd referred to that I was going to do, but I would, from an airplane perspective, I have been able to accomplish the most impactful strategy planning on airplanes. So I've talked about this before. Literally, if you were to go on Google Flights and be like, my destination point, and just give me a cheap flight somewhere, who cares really where it is? Just a round trip. It might be which now, I mean, you might have delays and all kinds of those. Anyways, but if it, $150, $200, get on an airplane and fly somewhere, turn around and fly back, you've got 4 hours of just dead time. You can accomplish quite a bit because you're forced to focus on, and you can't get distracted. You turn your cell phone off. You don't get phone calls. Turn your email off. Like, just go in and do the hard work. You can accomplish quite a bit. And it's, at that point, it's like a very inexpensive investment for strategy. So
my takeaway there is we should just get on airplanes more often and go see each other.
Okay.
Sorry, one more thing though. I do want to say,
if you were wondering, that wasn't like a drop in the podcast. That was dead air response.
I kind of rude, actually.
It's not the first time that you've mentioned that, though.
Right. And for some reason, no one wants to come see each other, I guess.
Well, I'll be happy to. I don't really want to come to Minnesota in winter.
It's beautiful.
Is it snowing there currently?
No.
Oh.
Well, we can go tobogganing.
Guys,
go on our sleds.
One other quick thing, though, that is actually impactful. Yeah. I think there are easy ways you can replicate that mentality. I know, Lars, you've talked about before on the podcast, but for those that didn't listen to that episode, every Tuesday or something, you go to a restaurant, just yourself,
glass of wine, for lunch.
I've recently thought about doing that, going to like a coffee shop for 3-4 hours and just, isolating yourself, forcing yourself into long periods. I don't want to say long periods of isolation, but an extended period of isolation for, 2 to 5 hours of really, which is what the airplane does, right? You can replicate that.
Even massage works really well.
It'd be harder to write doing that, but
just
go on a walk, go on a bike trip.
Going on a walk works great. Like
bike, golf. If you go walk by yourself, that's a good place to have isolation.
Yeah, especially the way you hit it. You're by yourself most of the time.
I'm telling you.
Into the trees.
Deep into the trees. Just get a little. So effectively, it's like, where can you get, if it's a road trip, maybe, right? If you can just get in your car and have some deep thinking. So it's figuring that out, but obviously having some capacity to be able to get some work done and utilizing technology around it. Okay, so here was the thing that I talked about that I was going to implement when I got back from the Cloud Summit.
Yep.
Was better understanding our camera customer base. So yes. I had an idea while I was sitting there that I didn't really know what kind, and I don't think our company really knew what kind of customers we were selling video to. And so my first question was, how can I figure that out?
Explain that a little bit. The kind of customer.
Yeah. So, we have, just categorizing customers into real retail, commercial office building, HOA, amenities.
So verticals or channels or whatever you would call it. Just
right.
The like grouped type of business that they perform and who you actually sell to.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so prepare incoming for AI or a LLM spill here, but I try to use technology. So literally on the plane, I got set up, got figured out how I could digest this data quickly and be able to categorize it. So I tossed all this information in and said, I want to know what my customer categories are for this particular product type. And it started kicking it back out. Well, I was able to also feed in additional data there to kind of say, these are the types of products that we're selling these customers. So which ones are using these particular cameras, which one they're using this particular access control, whatever. And it spit back out to me and pre-categorized all of these customers by these particular categories and said, here's your strongest market growth potential.
Right.
So at that point, I was able to I literally, while I was on the plane, went through that entire process and kicked out and created a document that I shared with my sales team that was on the plane with me. I sent it to them and said, here, go do this. And so it has big impact points. So, to Tony's question, right, you come away from that. How do you implement something quickly, or how do you know what's going to get the biggest impact? And that's, I think, the biggest challenge. This one was a kind of a low-hanging fruit that I could put together a package and a plan pretty quickly, assign it to somebody, and move on. But I think the bigger challenge that Tony may be talking about is you may come back with 15 different things that I can do. How do I identify which one I want to put my attention towards? Yeah. So one tool that I picked up from the Entree Leadership program that I did years ago was the strategic planning or strategic priority grid.
Yeah.
So I think I may have talked about it on this podcast.
Is that before. The four corner? Yeah. And that's actually the one I'm referencing to.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So the four categories that it really looks at is what is missing in my business that I need to add, what is broken that I need to fix, what is complicated that needs to be clarified, and what is the missing that needs to be added, broken that needs to be fixed, confusing, and then there's a fourth category that I can't think of off the top of my head. I'll have to find it. And then, so once you identify those things, now you just start to pop in those different tasks or those different ideas into those four quadrants. And the point of all of it is, if you can walk through that, then you now look at, if we were to put all of our attention towards one of these things that we feel like would get the biggest impact, what will we do and why? And then you effectively start to choose that. So it's just it's a simple tool to be able to help you clear your thoughts. So instead of it just being this super long list of just 1,000 different things or 15 or 20 different things, now I can categorize them and say, well, this particular thing is broken now. And if it's broken now and it's causing me to do more administrative work, or I'm having to answer more phone calls, or having to go in and fix this thing because it's broken all the time, then that may be the thing that you throw your attention to before you bring in the thing that's missing that you need to add.
Needs improvement. Could be better.
That's
the fourth one. It's Entree Leadership, EOS, Lean Kaizen Processing is what they refer to it as.
Yep, they're all pretty much the same. Yeah, working that needs to be amplified, broken that needs to be fixed, missing that needs to add, confusing that needs to clarify. And I can try to add this little chart onto the blog for this episode as well. But
yeah, so Chad, when you're doing that, or Tony, either you jump in. I know I have a strong opinion of this, but when you're going through this matrix and are you sitting there with your team, or is this something you do and then get them involved, or how does that work?
So here's my opinion on it, and then Tony, you can jump in on it. I have done it several different ways. I'll try to give a quick assessment of at least one or two of them. It really goes back to depending upon the type of strategic events that they are. So if it is something that only I'm going to be working on, then obviously that's me, right? But I've done this literally company wide, and I think it just depends on the amount of employees that you have. So I've done this when we had 20 employees. Literally that exercise with that chart on a big whiteboard in an all-team meeting. Throw out things that would fall into these categories. We put them up there, and then as a group, everybody had a vote in. You could vote towards the things that you thought needed to be done, and then the majority won, right? So, and those were items that were going to involve more people in the organization.
So you basically had a conference room, had the 4 categories on their sticky note, and said, all right, lay it on me. What can you think of that needs to be in one of these areas?
I really like that. We've done, when it comes to goal planning and whatever you want to call it, prioritization, we've done exercises like that, but a lot of times I don't know the right questions to ask. Shockingly, it's a lot of what do we need to work on, right? And it's very broad. I really like that extra level of detail to try to get people's wheels turning a bit more of what are we struggling with, and I think that's interesting, because one thing I was going to say about going to a conference and coming back with ideas or prioritization is a lot of times I think what Lars said is a really good first step, but then you have to look at how does that fit into my current strategic initiatives. If you don't have any, then that's a different story. But I do think it's important to follow something similar to the EOS model, where you're going through every quarter and outlining some strategic initiatives and clarifying what your priorities are ultimately. You can call them goals, you can call them rocks, you can call them priorities, you can call them OKRs, whatever that may be. The important thing is to have clear communication on what are my priorities for this quarter. And you may come back from a conference and somebody has already a full plate of priorities they're working on. And I think it's important to yourself as a leader, prioritize what you feel is important from what you learned, but be aware that your team may not be able to work on that immediately, depending on what else they have going on. And I think, to answer your question from a couple minutes ago, I think it's important to clarify yourself what you feel your priorities are, but then run it by your team and get their buy-in on that. And also they might enlighten you with stuff of like, yes, that may be your priority, Lars, but we're working on these 7 things that we've already deemed as a priority. And I don't think I can start working on that for another couple months unless something else is deprioritized.
Correct. Well, and going back to those 4 categories, if you were to go into either your leadership team or your full team, your organization, whatever the size of your company is, and you were to go ahead and pre-fill a few things in there to get the ball rolling, like here are some things that I've already seen, and here's some examples, and now let's go ahead and fill in a few extra. And at that point, it does several things. One, it's going to open up your eyeballs to things that you weren't aware of, because that's a thing in your organization right now. There are blind spots that you're not aware of. That's going to get those in. And then it also creates a little level of buy-in, because now everybody can see the broad picture. What a lot of times happens is an employee in their own little siloed area will think that the only thing that needs to be resolved is this one issue that they're aware of, and they're not quite aware of the entire organizational challenges. And so once you allow everybody to kind of post their things on the board, well, now this thing that is number 1 priority to this employee in the grand scheme of the organization may be number 10 on the list. And while I'm not trying to insinuate that you should devalue their challenge with that or the priority around it, it does help give clarity to everybody in the organization that it is on the list, but we have 9 things that need to be done and fixed before we get to that point. And now it's just clarity. It's not a no. It's not we don't care. It's but there are 9 other things that are going to be a challenge before that. So it just helps get clarity across the organization. This is what our challenges are. This is what we're focusing on. And now we can go after it collectively. as your company grows, I think you can segment those things down into smaller groups and smaller categories, and it still is a good, useful tool that they can prioritize by. To your point, Tony, they may already have 4 or 5 priorities that are all priority number 1. Well, I think we could all 3 agree that nobody that has 4 number 1 priorities are going to get them all effectively done. So how do you shift that to where you can say, nope, this is number 1, and we're not going to move to number 2 until that is accomplished or 95% of the way through?
Yeah. Threw a curveball at 4 number 1 priorities, because I don't think that's a thing. I think that's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I think that's his point.
I think think that it is a thing. I think that there's a lot of organizations that have everything is the top priority, and you cannot actually put effective attention on it. And so therefore none of them get done because everything is a priority.
Yes.
That was my point.
Yes. And that was my joke that wasn't great, but I guess I'm glad we got there. I would take it more extreme. It wouldn't be an Unlocked podcast episode if we didn't say people want a faster horse, which I also am going to see. I think I say that all the time. But Chad stood on stage and said it. So now people are like, oh yeah, Chad, quotes Henry Ford. It drives me crazy. Anyway, I was talking to your wife about that, Chad. So you can let her know that I brought this up and confronted you for stealing my stuff. Not the point here of this podcast.
First of all, we're all talking about stealing Henry Ford stuff.
Yeah, I borrowed it from Henry Ford.
This is a Lars Johnson original statement.
This is a Henry Ford Lars Johnson statement.
Well, it's a Henry Ford Steve Jobs Chad Lingefeld Lars Johnson statement. Really is the way I think the order would go.
Well, hopefully editing can cut out this nonsense that you just spewed. But my take is I'm not sure what it is. And I don't think it's a me that's a unique thing, but I think it is an entrepreneurial thing. There are people that are entrepreneurs, and then there are people that just aren't. They're just not wired that way. They haven't been trained that way, whatever you say. I'm going to reference another Marshall. Somebody help me with the last name, Marshall. Clark.
Merrifield.
Thank you.
Marshall Clark.
No, well, Clark Distribution Security. Come on. Anyway,
I'm with you.
And he referenced Roosevelt, I think, and his favorite quote. He was talking about the ones to believe are the ones that are actually in the trenches and getting it done, and is basically the people that know are the entrepreneurs. They're the ones that take the risks and consistently make mistakes and fail, and they just keep getting back up and doing it again. And I think there is something to it. There are a select amount of people in the world that are like that. And I do put more, more of faith in those people and what they say. And I consider myself one of those people. And I like to go through the priorities for our company and think about them myself. And that touches on what Chad is saying as far as, seeing the whole picture. Now, I'm not to say, no one else has input, but I like to go through this myself, come up with what I think is our best foot forward, has the most impact relative to the most effort. And then once I have that, I don't often share that. I then have the conversation to hear what others have, who then provide feedback and see what they come up with. Because I've tried it both ways. And one of my biggest frustrations in something I would say does not work at all is trying to get a consensus.
Yep.
To get a consensus, it means you have a simple, boring idea that doesn't push the wheel enough. Because if you can get a bunch of risk-adverse people and people okay with risk all to agree on the same thing, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
can I add a little different perspective on that? Because I actually agree with what you're saying. That as the kind of entrepreneur mindset, as the visionary, that does make sense to be able to come in and be able to have a clear picture of the overall. Here's where the priorities need to go. you also are at a different position of the business now, where you have the time and capacity to think clearly for the overall. You know where the business has been, you know where the business is, and where the business is going, or where you want the business to go. And I think when you're in the trenches, under 20 employees, it's hard to think about where you want the business to go. And so it does, at that point of the organization, I think it's critical to have some impact from the rest of the group, because you have so many blind spots. And but now, I'm a big fan of it now. I spend my time preparing, thinking, asking, and collaborating with other people outside of the organization to kind of understand what the outside effects and contributors are, to then be able to bring that back in to help set priorities. But I didn't have that ability, capacity, or really exposure when we were under 20 employees. Right. It was just, we got to get this done. Well, and so we were together.
This is now your job.
Correct.
We've talked about this in previous podcasts, but bringing in these new ideas and these new challenges to take big swings, this is now your job, educating yourself to know where we need to go next,
and setting priorities. Right, that's your job now. Yeah,
I do think that what Lars said a couple minutes ago there is really important. Because I've fallen victim to this, is establishing your priorities first. And I'm not saying you won't change them, but I used to go into a room and discuss something without having my thoughts flushed out, and then I wouldn't get my true organic thoughts in there, because it was just what do the masses think, and then I would try to seek a consensus and struggle, because I didn't actually come in prepared with what do I value. So I've changed that recently, where I try to think ahead of time, and that has been super helpful, of knowing what I value, knowing what I want, going to the group, getting input, letting they might be able to change my original thoughts based on what their logic is, collaborating and improving those initial thoughts based on their input. But it is really important to have your thoughts flushed out first. That is something that I went through recently, within the last year of changing. And it has been super helpful, of making sure. And a lot of times it was, unfortunately, due to lack of time, where I wouldn't prioritize the time to think myself. So I would use meetings as my time to think.
Correct.
And then it would end up not being my true thoughts, and I would try to get a consensus, and then it would be all over the place. So I think having that flushed out is super important. So I wanted to highlight that.
Can I add on that? The consensus situation is a challenge, especially as a growing organization. I fell victim of that as well before, trying to get 10 people to collectively agree on one certain thing, and it's nearly impossible. And what I think had to shift was, to your point, getting some time to be able to prepare and understand and design what the priorities should be for the organization, where we're headed. And then secondly, the presentation of those priorities, I think, shifts a little bit from a consensus and a collaboration standpoint. Instead of, hey, what do you guys think we need to do, to here's what we need to accomplish as an organization. We are going to go down this path. What will prevent us or stop us from being able to get there? At that point, now you are getting collective input from everybody, but it's not, what do you guys think we should do? It's, we're going this way. You guys also know what the blockers are, what the blind spots are, what the challenges will be. So let's talk into that. Not let's just all brainstorm here together. Let's talk into the challenges, and now we can address those.
Well, and it's very important to have an understanding of where you're going, because otherwise somebody might think you're going to, if someone thinks they're going to South Dakota, someone thinks you're going to North Dakota, and someone thinks you're going to Wisconsin, they're going to have a far different strategy of how to get there.
And they're all going to be disappointed.
Correct. I would definitely not want to go to North Dakota right now.
If those are the options, everyone's disappointed, no matter which way.
But anyways, the point remains: if you're not trying to go to the same spot, you're going to have a far different strategy to get there. So, saying what's broken or what needs to be fixed when you don't have a common theme of where you're going is important.
So I'm going through my process, and I sat through on the airplane and kind of figured out, and specifically was taking an angle at cameras and trying to sell some sizzle, and that was the first thing. I feel also that and we've alluded to these kind of thought processes the last several episodes, but to come back, and just to tweak something, to tweak a process that doesn't have a huge impact, I feel like that's my management team's job. Okay. We, I think, Chad, you were calling them fringe events or something, or edge
cases.
Edge cases. There you go. So, we spilt milk one day, and therefore now we have a process around it so that if we ever spill milk again, it doesn't ruin the carpet.
Yeah.
Which, that type of mentality, that's where I feel, my job is. I come back from these events and they always make me think about, well, simplify, and okay, well, let's sit down and let's go through some of these things. And again, it's just it's tied into this matrix that we were just talking about. Is it confusing? Is it broken? Have we built in edge events, whatever you just called them?
Edge cases.
The one-off edge cases, are those now built into process? Because as your organization gets bigger, you absolutely will have those in there that take more time than they save.
Oh, yeah.
So that was part of it. But the next pivot is looking at, for me, I feel my job is, what is the next home run? How do, of everything we just heard, the amount of effort that we're going to put in larger organizations, it takes a lot of effort to make even small changes, just because there's so many people, and that's just the way it works, sadly. So I try not to focus on those kind of smaller incremental changes, and I really try and focus on, okay, what is my next quarter? What is my next year? What's the next home run? And I try and look at, okay, where are we going to go that's going to make a huge impact, and then start finding the people that are going to be in place to make that come together. So one of the ones I was looking at, for instance, is our CRM. We're using a hot bag of garbage. Okay. And I think,
didn't you build your CRM?
We are, and it's supposed to be released in 2 days. You're not going to believe this, but our IT team is behind. So it's not going to be released on time. But
hot bag of garbage.
It is a hot bag of garbage. Ugh. So trying to figure out, all right, this is going to be a big lift. This is going to impact everyone in the company. Probably got to spend some time thinking through this and going back to our team, because to me, that's going to be a 10x. It's going to automate a whole pile of process. It's going to save a whole pile of time. It's going to be a major impact. So diving back into that, because I've largely been out of that realm since we've, come up with a strategy and went forward. But it's these kind of large scale things that I focus on, rather than maybe the more incremental stuff. That, when I'm going through my list of notes from the conference, the small incremental stuff, okay, Tony, you take care of that. Alex will run with this. But the larger scale ones, those are the ones that I focus on. It's not necessarily the easiest, but it's, the largest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another thing, I don't want to go super deep down this route, but when you talk about prioritizing ideas, I think a lot of times as the entrepreneur, you are a visionary. You come up with a lot of ideas. And we've talked about this in other podcasts, and maybe Chad can figure out the episode if people want to go check it out. But it's very important to have somebody, a key person, whether it be a chief operating officer, operations manager, director of operations, whatever you want to call them, but somebody that you're kind of running your ideas through, filtering your ideas through, because I think a lot of times you, as that leader, can give people whiplash a little bit.
The Bezos
come up with too
clip.
many ideas.
I think Chad just sent the Bezos clip about having enough ideas to.
Yep. Yes. Correct. Yes.
Right.
Yep. And it's really important to, a lot of times, I think some people can handle prioritization and idea generation themselves, but it's important to have somebody or a small team of people you run those ideas through that are helping you with the prioritization. Because a lot of times, at least I know this is something I run into. It's just, I want to do whatever the newest thing is now. And it's not, there's no filter I'm running it through. And if you're not running it through a filter, it's very easy to distract the team.
Mm-hmm. Well, it ends up like the introduction to this podcast.
Correct. Yeah.
Just goes
exactly.
100 different directions. And, And that's a shot at you that I should probably just take a minute because everyone's laughing right now and not listening. Okay.
Yep. I think it's over. Yep.
Another kind of strategy coming out of these things is what not to do. I think that's probably arguably just as important. I think that's what you're alluding here, Tone, is, the clip that Chad sent us, and it was Bezos was being interviewed, and Jeff Bezos, you've probably heard of, he has that little company called Amazon. And, one of his strategic partners early on in his career said, Jeff, you have enough ideas that you can ruin this company.
Yeah.
And it was a super impactful statement, like, oh yeah, so pick one, or let me pick one.
Right.
And let me run with it, because you have all these ideas. And if you try and get them all done, you're going to end up tied in knots.
Well, I think we've all probably have either experienced or been the person that has caused the experience of organizational whiplash. I know for me, 2015 probably to 2019 was a new idea every 30, 45 days. And by the time we almost got it implemented, then it was already time to change and shift something else. And I didn't really realize it because I was excited. Like, I was enjoying life at that time. Just everything's great. We're just going to try this. But by the time I didn't realize how long it took to saturate inside of our organization to actually be implemented. And then by the time that actually happened, we were already on to 4 more things. And I had a conversation with somebody at the time, I don't remember, one of our employees, and he was like, yeah, there's too much stuff going on and we're not doing any of it well. It's just chaos. I was like, so I had to dial that back. What are the important things? And that's where that strategic planning and all those things started to come in play. Is there was too many new things happening, but which is a little bit different, I think, than Tony's original question was, how do you choose what the next thing is? Because at that point, everything was important and everything was fun and everything was exciting. And
4 number ones.
Yeah, but it was not effective, and we weren't actually doing any of it well. So then dialing that back down, and I think that's the hardest part right now with what I do in my organization is how many of the things that I'm holding back, how many of the things that I'm like, oh, okay, we just need this to be ready so that we can get to that point, like and just kind of always watching when it's time to release the next thing, when it's time to implement this next strategy, but the imperative point right now, I guess, is getting to a point of just committing to something. And I think the challenge that a lot of us have at various points of our organizational growth and our leadership development is just committing to the one thing. And it could be wrong. It could be the absolute wrong thing to do. But if you have mechanisms in place that you're reviewing it every 30 days, every 60 days, whatever, then you can make those adjustments. But not making a decision at all is really the hardest part. And that's I think where we get stuck.
And, I'd add to that, key to any of these implementations, I know this is about how to decide, but once you've decided a couple, I'm going to call them tricks because we love a good tip and trick on the Unlock podcast. But we have to have that review mechanism in place. So set a calendar reminder for yourself, put it in your calendar that every second Tuesday, you're going to look at what's being implemented and make sure we're still going to North Dakota. Right. And before even starting that, and this is one of the tricks I use with my management team, is when we decide, okay, we're going to go to North Dakota, we stop and then say, what's the most obvious thing that's going to go wrong? Right? If you're creating a scorecard for your team, what's the most obvious thing that people can do to circumvent this? And it's a critical question because you're preventatively fixing the challenges that you're going to have. Like, what's the obvious thing that's going to go wrong with implementing cameras over access control? For me, I ask that question, what's the most obvious thing that's going to go wrong? It's like, well, we don't know enough about cameras that we're not going to be comfortable selling it. So the guys aren't going to sell it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where I went down the path. I was like, okay, so before I even talk about this, let's get them educated on the products they're going to sell, because they're going to want to know every nook and cranny and every detail. And then once they know that, my next step is, hey guys, how about selling some cameras? Do you guys like that idea? So it's, my thought process, it's all internal, which is obviously part of the problem. But that's what drove me down that path. It just took me a few minutes to figure out what actually did that. So.
Yeah. No, this has been really helpful. I think there's some good takeaways here. To kind of summarize my thoughts, starting with acting early, whether it be on the airplane or right when you get home, look through your notes, create a prioritization list, and really focus on the impact the thing is going to have and the ease of which you can implement it. And however you want to score that or process that, go through and come up with your own priorities. And then I think once you do that, meet with at least someone, whether it be a team of people or maybe somebody who's your operations person, but to kind of like filter those ideas through and see if they're in line with you. And then really focus on delegating that idea to another whether it be that first person you ran the filter through, or putting somebody in charge of that initiative, rolling it into your quarterly goals or putting it on a future list for goals or something. But then also making sure that you have, I think another takeaway that I want to make sure isn't lost is making sure you have some sort of a North Star for your company. Something your ultimate goal, and have that vision set so that when you get these ideas, you can see how does this idea align with that vision. And I think that's a filter you can run that through of if my vision is to be the best locksmith in the state of whatever, and all of a sudden I got this idea of adding on cameras, that may not align super well. So having that vision will help process some of these prioritizations. So those are my takeaways. Did I miss anything? Anything you guys else you have left to add?
No, and just the reference point that you made there for the who, not how, that's episode 54. I would definitely go back and listen to that one if you missed it. Maybe you listen to it and you need to listen to it again, because I think that, if we were to categorize the top 5 episodes that we've done as a group this past year plus, that episode is probably going to be in the top 5 of impact.
Yeah, and I would just echo, the book again, especially if you're in, I'm going to put the number at 17 people. If you have more than 17 people in your organization, that is the messy middle part where you're going to have to start implementing that mid-level management, maybe a senior manager, a general manager. And that's where you really have to start moving into that strategic kind of leadership position. And that's where reading a book like Who Not How is going to impact your mindset, because you can either kill yourself trying to do absolutely everything, which we've probably done for a while, and then and grinded through it. Or if you want to do it better than the 3 of us did, probably start looking at your who's and developing them and training them. And I know we have episodes about that as well. But it's Who Not How is definitely a book that will change your mindset. I think, the only thing I would add to that, where, I think, Tony, your takeaways, I would highly recommend when you get back on the airplane, it's perfect, but time block your calendar the day you get back, because you're going to have a bunch of fires that people need questions and all that crap. But that is the single best time for you to process the information that you just went through.
Yep.
And, I'm guilty of it right now on my desk. I've got a stack of business cards and notes and scribbles and all that stuff. It's now been 2 weeks and I haven't gone through it. And that's shame on me. That's terrible. But, it's fresh. Get it done. Send some emails out to the people that you met, make those connections, do all that stuff. Do it right away. Block the time so you can prioritize that when you come back. And that's when I get the most out of the conferences. Rather than what I did this time and left a mess on my desk. So
I do think a really good episode for future, and maybe one Tony can host for us, is calendar management, because that's how do you organize your day? How do you manage your calendar? It's we're all getting to the point. I don't think everybody's good at it, right? It's various points of the organization, and making sure that you're actually structuring your day well, managing your time, and then allocating the appropriate amount of time for thought, for development, and kind of future opportunities.
This is where I write down that we're going to do a podcast on calendar management, and then I bring it up in a month, and you guys think it's an awful episode. So I just want that noted for the record. So
if you approach me with the title calendar management, I am absolutely going to crap all over it.
Correct. If Chad approaches you with it, it's great. But when I approach
he
it with
tells
you,
me
awful.
calendar management, I will crap all over that too. If you can come up with a sexier term than calendar, let's try paint drying as well.
Okay.
Lord.
Anyways,
yep.
I was just going to say, on the point of next topics, Chad, what are we going to be talking about next week?
Okay.
Land the plane, Chad. We're getting long in the tooth.
So here's something that we've talked a lot over the past several weeks: mastering and cash flow, leveraging debt, retention strategies, being sticky. We talked about processing the processes, KPIs that drive our business. There's been a lot of topics around business functional strategy. We are coming up to the end of 2025. And so my question to you guys that we're going to record on the next episode is, what are you proud of from this year? So taking a little bit of reflection and also kind of encouraging our watchers and our listeners to do the same thing. What are you proud of that you accomplished this year in your business? And just having a little bit of reflection time. And then the kind of follow up on that is, what are you going to do to celebrate that with your team? So getting very intentional around recognizing that as entrepreneurs, often we are driven to get to the next thing. We accomplish that task, we summit the mountain, and then what's the next point? What else? And rather than getting kind of stuck on that, it is good for your organization to take time to celebrate and reflect on it. So in order to do that, let's do some preparation. What are we proud of this year? What are we going to do to celebrate with our team as we close out 2025?
Sounds great.
Sounds better than calendar management. But Chad, remind the folks, because they clearly had trouble finding us if they're listening to this, but this is just one of those dumb things that podcasts do. Where do they find us?
Like, subscribe, and comment. If you're watching this and you're listening to this, just click the subscribe button below. That way you're always connected for the future episodes. This is 58, episode 58. We've got a full load of podcasts that you can go back and check out. Some are better than this one. Some are worse than this. So choose wisely. And then we've got a slew more of podcasts coming up, some great episodes that are going to be beneficial to you as you continue to try to focus on growing your business. This is a weekly podcast. It comes out every Thursday-ish, and so make sure you subscribe so you get alerted when it comes out, because it's not a consistent time. So you want to have that alert turned on so you know when it's there.
Hot take. It occasionally is forgotten.
Occasionally. So unlockedpodcast.com is the website. Subscribe there for all of the podcast feeds and video feeds. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for your feedback every single week. We appreciate it.